Afternoon, everybody. My name's Dan Gordon. I am an associate professor in cardiorespiratory exercise physiology at AIU Cambridge, so just down the road from where you guys are based. And I'm going to talk to you now for probably the next 30 minutes. We'll have time, hopefully, for questions at the end about studying on our BSc Sport and Exercise Science course. It's worth saying, actually, we've got a suite of courses. So although I'm going to talk about sport and exercise science as a degree, we've actually got a degree in sports coaching and physical education, sports therapy with rehabilitation, and strength and conditioning with rehabilitation. Plus, we've got two distance learning degree courses, which have been running for about 10 years, which are designed for those that have got careers in football. So if you're coaching football or playing football, we've got two online courses as well. But I'm going to talk about this course because this is really the flagship course, in the sense that this is the one that's been with us the longest. It's been with us for over 20 years now at AIU. And hopefully I can give you a flavour of what it's like to study, but also how to get onto the course and kind of some little tips in terms of kind of applying and so on. But before we do, I was asked to give a bit of it's a bit strange. I was asked to give a bit of a background about myself and my kind of journey to where I am now. And it started quite a while ago. I mean, I left school, really going to show my age, in 1991. And I was in the position, I failed my A-levels. I had just didn't understand A-levels, didn't understand anything. So I ended up actually very luckily getting onto a HND. And I did 2 years at Bolton. And I'd originally actually wanted to go into physiotherapy. Again, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And at the time, sports science, as we know it now, was a really new discipline. So it wasn't something that was widely known about. But I did my HND and then found that actually through one of the modules, I really loved the sport and exercise science. So I got offered a scholarship at the University of Northumbria because I was a competitive athlete. So I did my BSc at Northumbria. I then actually took a year out after I finished my degree, and I actually went and taught PE for a year. I was very lucky. I got the opportunity to teach PE. And then I went to do an MSc at University of Essex. Again, by this point, I'd actually focused on physiology. I realized that physiology was very much the area that I was interested in. And then I got offered my job that I'm currently in now, actually, while I was completing my MSc. So I interviewed while I was doing the MSc and got offered the post at what was APU at the time, which was Anglia Polytechnic University, is now AIU. And then while I was at AIU, I studied for my PhD at the same time. So that's kind of a potted history of me, but I suppose it gives a sense of kind of that journey that you can potentially go on academically within exercise science. Alongside that, my career has worked outside of academia. So I was the consultant physiologist to the GP Paralympics team. So I worked with the track and field athletes from 2000 all the way up to 2008. I've been a consultant physiologist for UK Athletics. I've worked on the TAS scheme. And I've also been a consultant physiologist to the ECB as part of their Centres of Cricketing Excellence. So I've had an applied feel for everything, and also I've had kind of an academic approach as well. And in many ways, my kind of journey here, although a little bit of a potted history, kind of reflects the way that the degree works and gives you this sense of actually what we're going to be pushing for is not somebody who is just going to come out and have an academic understanding, but actually what we need you to be is an applied practitioner. Because the whole notion now is it's not about just studying for the degree and having the degree. Actually, you need to be employable. And so what you see here is just an example of where you can potentially go, but you'll see how that is very much symbiotic with what we have in the degree. So the degree that we offer in sport and exercise science, based in Cambridge, the entry criteria is 104 UCAS tariff points. A lot of people will say, well, that's actually relatively low. And actually, for the sector, it is relatively low. But there are a number of reasons why we've actually structured it like that. Experience has told us that a lot of people who are coming to study sport and exercise science tend to be also competing in sport. And so we recognize that a lot of our candidates are competing at a very high level. We've had and we have GB swimmers. We've got individuals who are competing for Great Britain in judo. We've had individuals competing internationally in cycling, for example. And so it's very hard to kind of balance your A-level studies and your BTEC studies at the same time as trying to compete. So we've actually always had a slightly lower UCAS tariff point. Secondly, you've got to have GCSEs. We're looking for grade C or above. It's grade 4 or above equivalent. You've got to have English and maths. And ideally, we would perhaps look for a science. It's not fundamental, but we look for a science. So that's kind of a minimum of 3 GCSEs. And then if you're going the BTEC route, it's a level 3 diploma in a related subject. So what we mean by a related subject would be for something like if you've studied for a BTEC national in sports, Sport Exercise Science, maybe sports development, but it could just be a BTEC in science, for example. But a lot of this you could find out at an open day or speaking to our admissions team. In terms of applicants, for the Sport Exercise Science degree, we get in excess of 400 applicants per year for that one degree alone. And we tend to take, of those 400, we take in the region of about 70 to 80 applicants. We have about 150 students across our 4 pathways on our first year. Sport and Exercise Science is the course that takes the most of those applicants. As I say, you're based in Cambridge. So for those of you that know Cambridge quite well, ARU is actually based on East Road, very close to Kelsey Kerridge Sports Centre. But Sport and Exercise Sciences are further up East Road. We're actually very close to the Newmarket Road roundabout, and we've got our own fantastic building. So we are very fortunate. We're one of the only courses in the university that has got its own dedicated building. And that's because we take a lot of space. We've got our teaching rooms, which are on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. So that would be lecture rooms. That might be what we call team-based learning rooms. That might also be computer rooms where you can come and do some of your computer-based work. But on the ground floor, that is where we've got our laboratories. And you can see just one of our laboratories here in the bottom right corner. This is our what we call our multi-purpose laboratory. It's actually primarily for biomechanics. So you can see, it's not the most obvious thing to see in this image, but just here, these are force plates. So we've actually got a runway. It's a 30-meter laboratory, so we've got force plates here. On the rig up here, we've got 3D motion capture. So we can do 3D motion capture in this laboratory. It's also portable, so we can move the motion capture system around. So this is kind of the portable example of it. But as I say, we've got 7 laboratories that we use. So we've got a number of laboratories for physiology. We've got a teaching laboratory for physiology. We've got what is called a hydrostatic weighing laboratory where we've got a hydro tank. And then we've got 2 additional research laboratories just for physiology as well. So you'll do all your kind of practical sessions if they're laboratory based here. If we have got to go and do stuff out in the field, so maybe we're going to do some field testing, or even you may in the first year do some coaching on this course, we will actually go either to our playing fields, which are just up on Trumpington Road, or we may actually just take you out onto Parker's Piece, because it's nice and close to where we are. You've got your own cafe and your own facilities and everything. So it creates a real ethos. You become very much a close-knit community, but you're only 5 minutes walk away from the main campus, where we've got our library, we've got the Students' Union. And so you may find that you have some of the bigger events on the main campus, but most of the kind of the smaller group-based stuff, so for example, when we get modular specific, will be based here at Compass House. And our staff offices are also here. So you can literally just walk into the staff office area and have a tutorial. Let me see if I can get this to move on. Okay, so what does it look like in terms of studying? Well, one of the things that's very unique about our course here at ARU is that our first year of the course is common, and it is common across 3 of the degree pathways. So if you're on our sports coaching and physical education, our strength and conditioning course, or our sport and exercise science course, your first year looks identical. And that's been done deliberately. It's done partly because we understand when we design the courses that we work with organizations such as the English Institute of Sport. We work with educators who are PE educators or coaches, and also people working in strength and conditioning, and all really informed us in terms of what you need in those disciplines. And the thing that came out was, to be a sport and exercise scientist, you actually have to understand the way a coach works. And to be a coach, you have to have some basic understanding of things like physiology, psychology, and biomechanics. So we have this common first year. Now, this is really, really cool because it means you can get to the end of the first year And you may be studying sport and exercise science and suddenly make the decision, actually, I think I really fancy moving to coaching. That is absolutely fine. You can swap pathway at the end of the first year. So you can swap across those 3 pathways. The only course that this isn't common to is our sports therapy course. So if you're on sports therapy, you're locked into that. And the titles don't give an awful lot away, but multidisciplinary sport and exercise science, which runs for a single semester, covers everything from exercise physiology, some biomechanics, some psychology, and some nutrition. And it's kind of an introduction to those. So you cover things like cardiovascular, respiratory, hepatic physiology, basic movement patterns, and so on. When you go into the second semester, which is multidisciplinary sport and exercise science 2, we take you much deeper. So we get into cellular physiology. So you might think about energy pathways. You might get into the notion of 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional motion capture using for biomechanics. And you'll get into more deeper understanding in terms of psychology. So moving away from kind of concepts, but into applications. The sports coaching and development is divided, perhaps it's a little bit more specific. The first semester is that kind of basic introduction. So you'll actually go and do some coaching and work. We have our facility, which is our big facility, is at Kelsey Kerridge. So we have access to that sports hall an awful lot. It's the ARU's sports hall. So you'll do some actual practical development there, practical coaching. In the second semester, it's very much about understanding the way you coach or teach for physical education and for sport. And so it's fundamental that as a scientist and as a coach in S&C, you have this background. The other module that sits across the first year is what we call professional development. And this is a unique module. And we have this twice. This is the first year and the second year. It's unique to sport and exercise sciences. It's what we call a 0 credit module. So it means it counts, but it's got no credits given to it. And this is about you developing professionally. And it's about developing your employability skills, something I'll come back to later on. And so it's really about building your CV up as you go through. Because one of the things we're conscious of is it's not just about getting a degree, it's about actually being employable when you actually graduate. So some of the basic things you'll do, you can see some of our students having a bit of fun in the laboratories, whether it's blood testing, as you can see on the right, whether it's expired air analysis, you can see in the middle, or doing some jump test work that you can see on the far left. In the second year, if you're studying sport and exercise sciences, you've got core modules. And I'll explain why they're core modules very briefly. Our course is an accredited course, and I'll come to what that means later on. But because we're an accredited course, it means there are specific things that we have to cover. And so that means that your first semester of your second year is core. So that means you're going to have to cover some psychological profiling. You do the competencies in biomechanics. You do physiological profiling for strength and power, and the applied research skills. The professional development is, again, that 0 credit module that I was referring to. The emphasis in the second year is about analysis. So the first year is about what we call description and describing. The second year is about analysis. So for example, physiological profiling for strength and power, there are 11 lectures, there are 11 seminars, there are 11 practicals. So you will have the lecture, you will go into the laboratories. We even managed to do this even with COVID, and you'll collect the data, and then we use that data to inform our understanding. The same applies with the practical competencies in biomechanics. We're trying to build up a toolbox for you in terms of all of the key skills and competencies that you need as a sport and exercise scientist. But we also offer you option modules. So you have to complete that first trimester, which is core, and then the second trimester, you can start to pick what you want to do. So you may have decided, actually, biomechanics was pretty tough. I didn't like that. So you don't have to take the biomechanics module, but you may really have enjoyed the physiology. So you may pick up the physiology module. So you would actually pick from these modules here, you'll pick 3 of these modules. The one module that you've got to do is what's called the Ruskin module. And the Ruskin module is a module that every student in the university has to complete. And these are really about developing your wider appreciation of society. And you choose the Ruskin module that you want to do. And it's really a great way of you kind of getting collaborative learning. So you may be on a Ruskin module with students studying art or medicine. But it may be that you're doing a Ruskin module which is about the use of social media, or it may be a Ruskin module which is to do with communication or writing skills. It's about just widening your understanding beyond your subject area. So again, you can tailor your degree once you get into the second semester to the areas that you really want to get into. So obvious combinations are things like biomechanics goes very well with strength and conditioning, nutrition has a lovely time with nutrition for health, and perception motor skills is a really nice follow-on to what you may have studied if you had studied psychology in the first semester. So again, the emphasis here is lecture supported by practical. So for strength and conditioning, every lecture, as you can see here with one of our graduating students, is that you will have your lecture, then you'll come into our multi-purpose laboratory. We've got our Essence strength and conditioning suite, we've got a load of lifting platforms, and you'll come and actually do the practicals to support that. The physiology, again, 11 lectures, 11 seminars, 11 practicals. One of the things that's really unique about our second year is that we start to develop your understanding in terms of empathy. It's really easy to coach somebody and teach somebody and test somebody who's on your course. Much harder to test somebody who you've never worked with before. So we bring people in that you've never met before, but also we get you to understand what it is like, for example, to have certain conditions. So we have simulation suits that we get you to actually wear. So we have simulation suits that are designed to make you feel old. They create back problems or joint problems. We wear simulation suits that are designed to make you experience what it's like having COPD, which means it's really hard to breathe, or visual impairment or hearing impairments. So we want you to experience what it's like when you're working with somebody so that you understand the way in which you have to adapt what you do. So it's a really unique aspect of our course. Again, some of the things that you'll get to do in the middle, this is in our hydrostatic weighing tank. So one of the only universities in the country to have this, which is an Archimedes principle. This is for we use it for cold water immersion studies, but here, this is quite simply for just doing a measure of densiometry. We've got a student on the left using what is called our isokinetic dynamometer, which is the assessment of strength. And then our students here on the right, not quite sure what they're doing, but they're actually meant to be assessing isoinertial strength using one of our Smith's machines. So again, you will get hands-on experience from the very first day that you arrive. It's something that is so key to your understanding. Then you move into the third year. And again, on Sport and Exercise Sciences, it's different for other courses. On Sport and Exercise Sciences, you have 3 core modules. Physiological basis of training and physiological responses to training are in the 2 semesters. So in the basis of training, it's about the science of training, both in terms of high performance, but also in terms of where a lot of our work is going now, working with the general public, working with obese populations, clinical populations. And it's the science of that, everything from immunological responses, which of course is very apt at the moment, through to training design and so on. And then the responses to training is about the way we biologically respond to that kind of exercise. And then overriding the entire third year is the research project. And everybody hears about the research project, the dissertation it's often referred to. But we've got a very unique approach to this. You can either do a conventional research project, which is you come up with a research idea, you bring participants in, and you test them, or you work with them, or you do an evaluative study, and you write that up. Or, as a number of our students are doing, we've probably about a quarter of our students now do this, we have an advanced work placement module, which replaces the undergraduate research project. So you spend not the whole year, but you are actually on an internship at the same time as studying, and you're basically doing work in the workplace, and you're working for that organization, and you write that as a reflective placement. So you'll be asked to develop something or do something, and you write that up. So it's about getting kind of on-the-job experience at the same time. But of course, you've got option modules, because you can see there weren't that many core modules. So again, you can start to tailor the degree into the area that you want to go. So you may well have really enjoyed strength and conditioning in the second year, or we can now bring in the advanced strength and conditioning in the third year. Or you really enjoyed the psychology, so you can now bring in contemporary issues in sport and exercise performance psychology, or applied sports psychology. So you've actually got 2 psychology modules here. You've got 2 biomechanical modules. So one of the things that, again, is quite unique is that you may say, actually, I want to do biomechanics in the first semester, but not the second semester. That can be done, because you may want to bring in exercise medicine, which is a lovely module, which is taking us out of the kind of high performance environment and actually looking at how powerful exercise is as as a medical kind of approach to dealing with things like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and so on. So you can tailor the course to what you want to do. And so it means that you, in a group of students that maybe say 50, 60 students studying sport and exercise science in your third year, you'll actually all be on very, very different routes through that third year. And there'll be modules where you have, you may be with your friends because they've chosen to do, say, strength and conditioning, but you may be in a different group because you've chosen to do applied sports psychology. So it allows you to think about where do you want to go, perhaps when you're thinking towards graduation, or where do your interests lie. But not surprisingly, we have to teach you and we have to assess you. But we understand that no two students really learn in the same way. So we use a combination of teaching strategies, everything from conventional lectures. So what you're seeing here actually isn't a lecture. This is kind of a head of a practical session, but we may use lectures. So the conventional approach is large-scale lectures and lecture theatres, which I suspect we will be coming back to at some point post-COVID, but at the moment we've been doing those, not surprisingly, online. But seminars, so we held our seminars, which are smaller groups, face-to-face, so you'd be on campus for small group seminars. We do things like the practicals, whether they're laboratory practicals, or whether you're out in the field, whether you're going into schools. You have tutorials. So tutorials are one-to-one sessions with either module leaders or your own personal tutor. We have field work. So we will take you out of the university, out of your comfort zone, and actually kind of get you into getting that hands-on experience, whether that's going to do some work at Addenbrooke's in the clinical environments, whether that's going out onto the river. It's Cambridge, we're bound to do stuff on the river. We want you to kind of broaden your abilities at working both in a closed laboratory environment out in the field. We do a lot of computer-aided learning. Now, don't confuse that with perhaps what many of you are experiencing at the moment, but this is using our computer software, which you can access remotely from home. You can access it in all the laboratories. You can even access it in the computer suites on the main campus. But we may use computer-aided learning to support you. So, for example, in lectures, we use a piece of software called PolEV. You may have watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You may have even used things like Kahoot and seen this in action. But we enable you to kind of vote and interact. That's really important because it enables us to track you against your student identification number. So it means that you can interact with what's going on, but if you are struggling, we can pick up upon the fact you are struggling because we've got it against your student identifier. So we use a lot of different technologies to enable us to engage with you, whether it is at the moment things like Zoom and Teams or whatever, to PolEV, to different technologies. We even use what's called unified active learning, very posh term, but it basically means we've been able to engage our completely online students who have been overseas at the same time as our face-to-face students using what are called gimbals, so that we've got the cameras being moved around, or even outdoors where we've been able to use drones to film what has been going on. So we have online and campus-based approaches at the moment, and we know for September that there is going to be clearly an online element, which will be the larger lectures. But anything which is, in essence, in smaller groups, which will be practical seminars and tutorials, will be on campus. But we also have to assess you. And I think one of the things to understand about assessments is that the assessments have to have a purpose. And with our experience, and we've had this course now for over 20 years, we've started to understand what works and what is actually appropriate for you moving beyond your education. So we assess your practical skills. We get you to do presentations. Many jobs that you're going to apply for will require you to do a presentation. So you've got to get comfortable. Nobody really likes presenting, but you've got to try and get comfortable doing presentations. We might get you to write laboratory reports as you would do perhaps in an elite setting or in a clinical setting. You actually write athlete feedback reports. So one of the things you do in the third year is you get given a client. You've never met them before. You'll test that client and you write the report back to that client. You may have computer-based assessments, MCQs, we use those. We do use essays, but very, very rarely. So you'll have a couple of essays in the first year, and depending on the modules, you may have one or two in the second year. Viva voces, that's oral exams, very, very good way of us finding out what you know, not what Google knows and what Wikipedia knows, because you sit down and actually have a one-to-one conversation, and we actually assess you like that. things like your final research project, and also designing things like infographics. So what you see is that the assessment strategy, as with the way in which we teach you, is incredibly varied. Because again, some assessment approaches work really well, some don't. But you'll notice the one thing that is missing. There is no conventional written exams. Why? Because written exams do not assess what we want them to assess. They're about recall. This is not about recall. We want you to be able to develop the skills and competencies needed to move into the wider world. So we've designed assessments that replicate that. Examinations do not replicate that. If you think about moving into the wider world, you're almost certainly never going to do a written exam again. So the assessments really mirror the wider world. And one of the things we use now is we use what are called a talking head approach. And so what we have is we have engaged with experts in the field, and we've asked them to set you a problem. So you'll actually get these experts either through video or actually coming into the campus who are working maybe in elite sports. So for example, we've done this with the physiologists at Brighton Hove Albion. We've done this with practitioners who are working, for example, in the shoe industry, running shoe industry. They come in and they set the problem for you, and that problem becomes the assignment. So again, it's that real world application. However, having just a degree doesn't make you stand out from everybody else that's out there. There are an awful lot of students who are potentially going to be wanting to study sport and exercise science when you go to university. So the big things that we have pushed is the idea for you to have opportunities in internships. Now, there are a number of different approaches. One approach is that we have a sandwich year. So that means you study the first 2 years conventionally. In your third year, you go out into what we call industry. And so you actually go and get experience, and then you come back and do your final year of study back with us in Cambridge. And that is open to any student. And again, it's about us putting you into an area which is appropriate. So for example, getting your experience at McDonald's wouldn't count, but getting your experience working for example, British Rowing would be appropriate. But we also have internships running while you are studying. And these are anything from 3 to 6 hours a week. And then with a range of organizations. So it might be that you want to get experience clinically. So we have opportunities to work within the NHS doing cardiac and respiratory physiology, or it may be that you want to get experience doing performance analysis. So we have up to 15 places with Cambridge United. You can boo and hiss at Cambridge United, but they've been fantastic in terms of supporting us. Or strength and conditioning. We have students who get placements. We take 2 each year who go and do placements with Leicester Tigers because they have actually a centre of excellence based in Cambridge. Or you may be interested in getting coaching experience. So for example, Cambridge Gymnastics, which is based in Huntingdon, we have students going there. Or it may be that you really want to push the boat out, and we have internship opportunities with ESA, which you may not know what that is, but that's the European Space Agency. So we're able to send students across to France and spend a week at the European Space Agency, and you're working on, for example, physiological problems, or you're working on psychological problems as part of the astronaut training program. Is an enormous opportunity. And these are all linked into those professional development modules I was talking about in your first and second year. So we want you to get as much experience as you can. So if you think, oh, I can't do all of these, there's a lot of these, what about other opportunities? Well, we have our own student consultancy. So our students run a physiological testing consultancy that you can get, again, great experience on, but you're working with the general public. You get opportunities to work with coaches and athletes. So we've been a test center for the Paralympic team in the past. You can even get through the university your coaching qualifications if you do your coaching through, for example, the Students' Union. So we'll fundamentally recognize that these are important to you developing as a student alongside you studying for your degree. And not surprisingly then, this is all tied to the notion of employability skills, and it is very much central to the theme of the course. Yes, you need to have the knowledge. Yes, you need to have all of that. But at the same time, we need you to be employable. So we bring in industry experts. We run a careers day where our alumni come back and talk to you about how they got to where they are, and then offer you the opportunities. They will offer you placements in their organizations. We offer things like the consultancy. We have our excellence in sport lectures. So this year we had John Barnes and we had Lizzie Arnold talking. We've had in the past Graham Gooch, for example. We get places of working on the Cambridge Half Marathon. There's huge opportunities for you to be involved, and it's all about boosting your CV. What is going to make you stand out from everybody else that's out there? Because the degree, yes, got it. Have I got all these other skills that are going to be fundamental to me moving beyond my degree into the careers market? In terms of the team, we've actually got 16 full-time members of staff. We're about to get 17, and the 17th joins us in August. We've got 2 part-time members of staff, and we've also got technical support. And the reason I wanted to show you this is to give you the idea that what we have at ARU is a team of experts. So, for example, we've got people who are experts in physiology. So I'm a physiologist. You wouldn't expect me to teach, for example, biomechanics. Whereas we've got, for example, this chap over here. Let me just use my little marker so you can see who I'm talking about. So Mike is a strength and conditioning coach. So Mike wouldn't, for example, teach on psychology. Matt is a sports development practitioner. Fran teaches psychology. Verity is a PE teacher, so he teaches our PE route. So we've got experts across the breadth of courses, and they're experts both in their subject area, but all of the team have got teaching qualifications, either PGCE or are fellows or senior fellows, the Higher Education Academy. Really important, because it means that you can be pretty certain that the experience that you're getting is of the highest level and the highest order. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier on about our course being accredited, and this is something we're incredibly proud of. Our course is a BASES endorsed course. What does that mean? Well, BASES are the governing body of sport and exercise sciences within the UK. So they have the oversight of anything which is sport and exercise science related. They provide kite marking, which means they validate and quality assure everything, whether it's in academia or whether it's an applied practice. So our course has been assessed by individuals from BASES who are completely independent of the university. They've looked at what we teach. They've looked at the practical experience. They've looked at our facilities. They've looked at the staff qualifications, and our course has been endorsed. On top of that, our laboratories have also been accredited. So this is separate to course endorsement. And this means that when we work in terms of maybe research or applied practice, or even in terms of your teaching, it has been accredited in terms of the quality of what is being produced in those laboratories. We are one of only 4 institutions in the UK that has got both endorsed course status and laboratory accreditation. One of only 4. On top of that, we are the only institution in the UK that has got the lab accreditation, the course accreditation, and a CIMSPA accreditation. So CIMSPA are the Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity. They've taken over what you may have heard of as being REPS. And so by us being an education partner and endorsed by them, it means that our course is aligned to the expectations of the fitness and health industry. So it means you're not only getting kind of the kite mark in terms of exercise science, but also the fitness industry. But it also means we can tap into the CIMSPA educational portfolio and offer you CIMSPA endorsed courses alongside your degree. So we offer you the chance to undertake those courses while you're studying with our CIMSPA endorsed staff. And again, it's about boosting your CV beyond just having the degree. But I could, you're probably, yeah, you're going to tell me the course is really, really good. Of course I am. But this is what our graduates have said about the course. And one of the things I would say is every course in the country, doesn't matter whether they're a sports course or a law course or whatever, have to show you on the university website their National Student Survey scores. And the NSS scores is the students who are graduating rating the quality of their experience. And this is what our students rated our course last summer. So this came out August last year. And you can understand why I'm pretty impressed by that. We were the highest rated sport and exercise science course in the country. And this isn't just a blip. In 2015, we achieved 100% in every single criteria that you see listed there. So we have consistently been rated in the top 5 courses for this National Student Survey for over 8 years. And there are 84 courses in the UK which come under the title of Sport and Exercise Sciences. So this is what our students are saying. And of course, these are really important, you know, in terms of the quality of the teaching, their opportunities, the support, all of the things that you would be asking about at open days. They're telling you this is the experience that they had. But you may not be totally convinced by that. So you may think, well, what about something like the Guardian League Table? Because the league tables are obviously a very useful tool to use. Well, in the latest Guardian League Table, Sport and Exercise Science at Anglia Ruskin is ranked #1 in the UK. So you can see who is sitting below us. You know, the people think of Loughborough or Birmingham. They may think of London or wherever. They're way below us in terms of that list. And so we are incredibly proud of this. We're our highest rated course in terms of student satisfaction, the highest rated course overall nationally for the provision in terms of sport and exercise sciences. So hopefully in that kind of whistle-stop tour, I've been able to give you a little bit of an overview. The final thing I very quickly wanted to show you, and I realize we're slightly perhaps pushed for time, is one of the things that we're very keen on is keeping engaging with our students. And what we've got embedded in here are a number of quick examples of what our students have gone on to. I'm just going to show you a couple of these very briefly. So if I can, hopefully this will come through. So let's see if Nick will play. Oh, there's Manon. I didn't want Manon to play.
Nick Lee, I'm the national team strength and conditioning coach for Sri Lanka cricket. Basically, I'm the lead strength and conditioning coach for the men's national team. We're currently ranked, I think, world number 6. We play the other top 10 nations.
So just an example, there's one of our graduates who is now the head of strength and conditioning for the Sri Lankan international cricket team. So Nick has just done the standard sport and exercise science degree. Very briefly to show you, this is Manon.
And I'm currently a forensic biomechanist at the National Biomechanics Institute in Los Angeles, California.
So something completely different. So Manon now works in California, in LA. She's focused on what's called forensic biomechanics. So if you've ever watched CSI and they have the court cases, her role is to go into a court case and show biomechanically whether what is being claimed happened. So she simulates trips, falls, accidents. But she learnt the basic principles of that in terms of studying physiology. Very quickly, this is Ella. Hope Ella will play.
So my name is Ella O'Neill, and I'm a respiratory physiologist at Alumni Hospital. My job basically entails testing patients for full lung function.
So
my name is Tiril Soyen.
That was Ella. I'm just going to pause Tyrrell. So Ella is a clinical physiologist at Addenbrooke's. Again, studied the undergraduate degree, now works with clinical groups. And one of the things we focus on is not just healthy populations, but clinical populations. So she's now working with COPD patients and the like. And then the final one is Tyrrell.
Norwegian, and I'm doing a PhD in exercise physiology at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Focused.
So Tyrrell's gone perhaps a slightly more conventional route. She's gone on to do a PhD to do with aging and the way in which we lose muscle mass when we are aging. But hopefully the thing that you've got from this is that the career opportunities are enormous. And one of the things we're incredibly proud of, which contributes to why we're ranked #1 in the country, is 91% of our graduates are in employment within 6 months of leaving us. 91%. The sector average is 71%. So we're incredibly proud of that. And a large number of our students will actually be going into their jobs pretty much the day after leaving university. So we've had students who we've had to speed up their assessments. It happens every year to get them through because their jobs have come up. And they're in a plethora of fields. So hopefully that has given you some ideas about what it's like to study here with us at ARU. And gives you a little sense of what is going on. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take some questions, or if needs be, you can perhaps send them through to me via email.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Not a problem at all.
Really interesting.
Good.
Thank you.